You know those conspiracy theories about secret messages hidden in ancient monuments and historical texts? Yeah, turns out some of them are actually real. And the ones that aren't? They're way more interesting than you'd think. Look, I've spent weeks going down this rabbit hole, and what I found is going to change how you look at history. Because whether these codes are real or made up, the stories behind them reveal something pretty wild about human nature and our obsession with hidden meanings. So, let me take you through some of the most famous secret codes and hidden messages in history, and we'll figure out together what's real, what's nonsense, and why people believe this stuff in the first place. Let's start with something that actually blew my mind when I first learned about it. The Voynich Manuscript. This thing is a real book that exists right now, sitting in Yale University's library. It was written in the early 1400s, and here's the kicker. Nobody can read it. Not a single person has definitively cracked this code in over 600 years. The manuscript has about 240 pages filled with strange drawings of plants that don't exist, naked women in weird bathing scenes, and astronomical charts that make no sense. The text is written in a completely unknown alphabet and language. Some of the smartest codebreakers in history have tried to decode it. We're talking about people who cracked Nazi codes during World War II. They couldn't figure this thing out. So is it a real code? Or is it just gibberish made by someone messing around in the 1400s? That's where it gets interesting. Computer analysis shows the text has patterns similar to real languages. It's not just random letters thrown together. The way certain characters appear together, the way words are structured, it all suggests this could be a real language or an incredibly sophisticated code. Some researchers think it might be an early form of Turkish. Others think it's a lost Romance language. One theory says it's a code created by a group of nuns. Another theory says the whole thing is an elaborate hoax created by a con artist trying to sell a mysterious book to a wealthy collector. But here's what keeps me up at night. What if it's real? What if there's actual knowledge locked in those pages that we just can't access? Medical knowledge, scientific discoveries, philosophical ideas from 600 years ago just sitting there waiting for someone to crack the code. Now let's talk about something that definitely was a hoax, but became one of the most believed myths in history. The Freemasons and their secret symbols everywhere. You've probably heard this one. People claim that Freemasons, this secretive organization, have hidden symbols all over historical buildings, money, and important documents. The most famous example? The pyramid with the eye on the US dollar bill. Here's the truth. Yes, some of the founding fathers were Freemasons. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. They were members. But that pyramid and eye on the dollar, it's not a Freemason symbol. It's called the Eye of Providence, and it was a common symbol used by lots of different groups to represent God watching over humanity. Christians used it. Artists used it. It wasn't some secret Freemason code. But why did people think it was? Because humans love finding patterns even when they're not there. We're wired to do this. It's called apophenia, the tendency to see meaningful connections between unrelated things. When you combine that with the fact that Freemasons actually did have real secret rituals and codes, people's imaginations went wild. The Freemasons did use real codes, though. They had specific handshakes, passwords, and symbols that only members would recognize. These were used to identify each other and protect their meetings during times when secret societies were illegal in some places. So there was a kernel of truth to the myth, which made the wild conspiracy theories more believable. Let me tell you about a code that's way more fascinating than any conspiracy theory. The Caesar cipher. This is one of the oldest secret codes in history, and Julius Caesar actually used it to send military messages. The way it works is super simple, but was effective for its time. You just shift each letter in the alphabet by a certain number of positions. So if you shift by 3, A becomes D, B becomes E, C becomes F, and so on. Caesar used this because most people back then couldn't read anyway, and the few who could wouldn't think to try shifting the letters. It seems basic now, but in 50 BC, this was cutting-edge encryption. His generals would receive these scrambled messages and know exactly how to decode them because they all agreed on the shift number beforehand. Here's why this matters. This shows us that secret codes in history weren't always about mysticism or hidden prophecies. Sometimes they were just practical tools for communication. But over time, people forgot the practical reasons and started attributing magical or mystical properties to these codes. Now we need to talk about the Bible codes because this is where things get really controversial. Some people claim there are hidden messages encoded in the Hebrew text of the Bible. They say if you skip certain numbers of letters and string them together, you'll find prophecies about future events. There are books written about this, documentaries made. People genuinely believe this. The most famous example is the Bible code discovered by a mathematician named Eliyahu Rips in the 1990s. He used something called equidistant letter sequences. Basically, you take the text, remove all the spaces, and then search for patterns by skipping letters at regular intervals. Using this method, researchers claimed they found predictions about assassinations, wars, and disasters. Sounds impressive, right? Here's the problem. Mathematicians tested this method on other books. They used Moby Dick, War and Peace, even Harry Potter. And guess what? They found the same kinds of predictions in those books too. You can find hidden messages predicting modern events in any sufficiently long text if you look hard enough and use these methods. This is a statistical trick. When you have a huge text and you're allowed to skip letters in any pattern you want, you're going to find coincidences. It's not a miracle, it's just probability. But the myth persists because people want to believe there's hidden meaning in ancient texts. Let's switch gears and talk about a code that turned out to be completely real and way more important than anyone expected. Linear B. This was an ancient Greek writing system that nobody could read for thousands of years. It was found on clay tablets in Crete and mainland Greece, dating back to around 1450 BC. For decades, scholars tried to decode it and failed. People thought it might be a secret religious code or messages from a lost civilization. Then in 1952, a guy named Michael Ventris cracked it. And what did he find? Not prophecies or mystical secrets, just accounting records. Lists of goods, inventories, tax records, names of workers, the most boring stuff imaginable. But here's why this is actually incredible. It proved that the Mycenaean civilization was way more advanced than historians thought. They had complex administration, organized trade networks, and written bureaucracy. All that secret code was just everyday business, but decoding it completely changed our understanding of ancient Greece. This is a pattern you'll see over and over. People assume ancient codes must contain profound secrets, but usually they're just practical communication tools. The real secret is that our ancestors were way more organized and sophisticated than we give them credit for. Now I have to tell you about the Zodiac Killer ciphers because this is one of the creepiest examples of real secret codes in history. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a serial killer in California sent coded messages to newspapers, taunting police, and claiming to reveal his identity. He sent 4 major ciphers. The first one was cracked pretty quickly by a high school teacher and his wife in 1969. It was a simple substitution cipher, and the message was disturbing but didn't actually reveal who he was. The second cipher, called the 340 cipher, wasn't solved for 51 years. Not until 2020, when a team of code breakers finally cracked it using computer algorithms and good old-fashioned puzzle solving. And what did it say? More taunting messages, but again, no real identity revealed. There are still 2 unsolved Zodiac ciphers out there. Are they real codes, or did the killer just send random symbols to mess with people? We don't know. Some experts think they might be gibberish designed to waste police time. Others believe they contain real information that could still help identify the killer. Let me tell you about something that sounds like complete fiction, but is absolutely real. During World War II, the Navajo Code Talkers used their native language as an unbreakable military code. The US Marine Corps recruited Navajo speakers to transmit secret messages in the Pacific Theater. They didn't just speak Navajo, though. They created new words for military terms that didn't exist in their language. A fighter plane became a hummingbird, a battleship became a whale, a grenade became a potato. The Japanese never cracked this code, not once. They captured Navajo soldiers and tried to force them to translate, but it didn't work because even knowing Navajo wasn't enough. You had to know the specific code words the Marines created. This code helped win critical battles like Iwo Jima. So why am I telling you this? Because it destroys the myth that all historical codes are mysterious or mystical. Sometimes a code is just a smart solution to a practical problem. The Navajo Code Talkers saved thousands of lives using their language as encryption, and there was nothing supernatural about it. Just brilliant strategy. Now we need to address one of the most famous hidden messages in history, the Knights Templar and their supposed treasure codes. The Knights Templar were a real military order during the Crusades. They were powerful, wealthy, and yes, they had secrets. When they were disbanded in the 1300s, people started claiming they hid vast treasures and left coded maps to find them. This myth has inspired countless treasure hunts, books, and movies. Is any of it real? Almost certainly not. The Templars were arrested suddenly and their assets were seized by the French king. There's detailed historical records of this. They didn't have time to hide vast treasures or create elaborate codes. Most of their wealth was in the form of land and property anyway, not gold coins that could be buried. But here's where it gets interesting. There might have been some Templar knowledge that survived. They were involved in banking, architecture, and had connections across Europe and the Middle East. Some researchers think certain architectural features in Templar buildings might encode geometric or mathematical knowledge, not treasure maps, but actual educational information preserved in stone. Let's talk about something even older, the Egyptian hieroglyphs. For over 1,000 years, nobody could read ancient Egyptian writing. People thought hieroglyphs were mystical symbols full of secret magical meanings. Scholars wrote whole books about the hidden wisdom supposedly encoded in Egyptian texts. They thought each symbol was a profound philosophical concept. Then, in 1822, a guy named Jean-François Champollion figured out how to read hieroglyphs using the Rosetta Stone. And guess what he discovered? They're just an alphabet. A really complicated alphabet with hundreds of symbols, but still just a writing system for recording normal language. Most hieroglyphic texts are about mundane stuff. Laws, prayers, historical records, even ancient gossip. All those mystical secrets people claim to find in hieroglyphs, complete nonsense. They were just projecting their own ideas onto symbols they couldn't read. Once we could actually read them, the mystery disappeared. Now we need to talk about why people are so obsessed with finding hidden messages in history. Part of it is psychological. We want to believe there's more to life than what we can see on the surface. Secret codes and hidden messages suggest that reality has another layer, that there's special knowledge available to those smart enough to find it. It makes people feel like they're part of something bigger. There's also a distrust of official narratives. If you believe powerful institutions are hiding the truth, then of course you'll look for hidden messages they supposedly left behind. This isn't always wrong, by the way. Governments and organizations do hide information. But the real secrets are usually in classified documents and private communications, not coded messages hidden in public monuments. Here's something that'll really bake your noodle. Sometimes the hidden message is that there is no hidden message. Take the pyramids of Giza. People claim they encode mathematical constants, astronomical alignments, and all kinds of hidden knowledge. Some of this is true. The pyramids do have impressive mathematical properties and astronomical alignments, but that's not hidden. It's just architecture. The Egyptians were incredible engineers who understood geometry and astronomy. They put that knowledge into their buildings because that's what you do when you build something that needs to last forever. The hidden message is just that ancient people were smarter and more capable than we assume. We don't need elaborate conspiracy theories to explain the pyramids. We just need to give the Egyptians credit for being brilliant engineers. Let me bring this all together with something that might change how you think about all of this. Every generation creates its own code myths based on its current fears and obsessions. In the Middle Ages, people looked for hidden prophecies about the end times. In the 1800s, they looked for coded treasure maps. In the Cold War, people saw communist symbols everywhere. Today, people look for coded messages in social media posts and corporate logos. So are secret codes and hidden messages in history, fact, or fiction? The answer is both, and that's what makes it interesting. Some codes are definitely real. The Caesar cipher, the Navajo Code, the Zodiac ciphers. Some hidden messages are definitely fake. Freemason symbols everywhere, Bible codes, most Templar treasure theories. And some fall into this gray area where we just don't know yet, like the Voynich Manuscript, but here's what I think is the most important takeaway. The obsession with finding hidden messages tells us more about ourselves than about history. It shows us what we value, what we fear, and what we hope to find. Every code myth is really a story about the people who believe in it. The real secret hidden in history isn't in coded texts or mysterious symbols. It's in understanding why humans are so desperate to find them in the first place. We want to believe there's hidden knowledge out there. We want to think we're smart enough to decode what others missed. History is full of actual mysteries that don't need conspiracy theories to be fascinating. Real codes that protected real people. Real secrets that changed the world. And sometimes, just sometimes, messages that are still waiting to be decoded. Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into history myths.